we go. Hey, hi everybody. You're all going to do great, and it's going to be fun, and everybody's going to love it.
Don't tell
And
me
we're supposed to believe that, right?
How's that for conditioning? And
No pressure. The whole world's watching.
I really sold that too, didn't I? My conviction.
Subtle suggestion.
Yeah.
Paging Skinner, paging Dr. Skinner.
Sounds like the slightly less intense version of the shouting you just did before the on air.
Yes,
shouted the same exact thing, only much more intensely.
I always berate my guests before we go on the air in Patreon Hangouts.
It's worth the abuse.
Like, look, you fuckers, you're going to smile, you're going to laugh, you're going to have a good goddamn time.
You're not going to disagree with me about shit! You're going to tell everybody how right I am!
And for some reason, we keep coming back for more.
Yeah.
Yes.
Alright, so I'm going to put my clothes on and we're going to start.
Yeah, exactly. Let me get my pants on. We're going to start this thing.
Well, that's what we need to have is a nude hangout. Here we go.
That's not a great idea.
That would. I mean, you want to lose viewership?
That would, yeah. the viewer number would be in the negatives. I'd be like, how is that possible?
Yeah, I don't know if that would work out as a winner for me or a loser, depending on if you're looking at it from my viewing point of view or my experience point of view.
Chris, you definitely lose in this scenario.
Oh look, a new Patreon episode. Oh God, Jesus Christ!
Oh.
Yeah. What
Flat
the hell? The framing would be key.
Turn it off! Turn it off!
We would have to make sure all of our webcams were placed in precisely the right angle.
They turn it on and they just lose the will to live.
Yeah, like, oh, I'm not going to do this. my YouTube channel and my Patreon campaign would die instantly in that moment.
Well, we're becoming extremely popular, but which one's worse?
Yeah, well, yeah. If it does take off, it's like, great. Do I have to do this every month now? You create that expectation. It's like Ellen DeGeneres dancing. It's like now she has to do it.
Yeah, but how do you take it to the next level?
I don't know. I can't. I'm not even sure I've ever seen Ellen DeGeneres dance, and I mean, much as I like her, nah, just not an interest.
It's charming, but it's one of those things where she did it once and everybody's like, look, Ellen's dancing, and now she's like, oh, so now you want me to do that all the time? Okay.
Yeah, I don't watch Ellen much either, so. I mean,
Neither do I. I'm not like a regular viewer. Actually, I don't know what's more embarrassing or if this would be more embarrassing than watching Ellen or not. But I watch Dr. Phil way more than I watch pretty much any other talk show.
The time of the day.
He is an idiot. I don't give him any credibility at all. But
what do you get out of watching him?
It's like a guilty pleasure. It's
like
just
watching Maury.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, listening to Dr. Phil talk is kind of fun.
Yeah.
The things he has to say in that accent of his are kind of entertaining.
I think what I need to do at some point is put together a Dr. Phil drinking game because there are certain phrases that he always falls back on, and he usually says at least 2 or 3 of them every episode.
Yeah.
And like he's always going to reference the fact that he used to be an officer of the court.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he used to say, I have a year's postdoctoral training in forensic psychology. He always mentions that. You know, he always has the homespun Texas isms. So, I mean, I could put together a hell of a Dr. Phil drinking game.
Yeah, the problem is, Steve, everybody be sloshed in the A block before the first commercial.
Exactly. Oh God, Dr. Phil.
My friend has a ball of a time coming up with nonsensical Southern expressions, although none come to mind. So.
Yeah. There was the let's throw it out on the stoop and see if the cat licks it up. That's from 12 Angry Men, actually. I think. Remember that one, Christy? That's from 12 Angry Men.
A long-tailed cat in a room full of rockers?
Well, that's an old one.
Yeah, like a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest.
These are all new ones to me. I guess I'm just young and unappreciative.
You just haven't been exposed to the beauties of American English yet.
All these young people.
Beauty.
Yeah, there was this one that my granddad used to have, and I know I've nosed around with it and I discovered it was derivative, but and I actually used it when I was honored to give his memorial eulogy. And he always said, well, the rain falls upon the just and the unjust fella, but mostly on the just because the unjust stole the just's umbrella.
I like that.
And the thing is, there was a wonderful tie-in on that because my granddad knew about the just and the unjust fella because he was a cop.
Wow.
There's a great measurement in Southern cooking, which is when you're trying to figure out how much sherry to put in a dish. It's just enough to get the preacher drunk.
I like that.
That's not bad.
Just enough to get the preacher drunk.
Either that or enough to get you drunk so you don't mind what the preacher is saying.
Don't cook it so that the alcohol's completely out of it.
Yeah.
Undercook it. Throw into a little bit of sherry and undercook it a little bit. So
The question is, how large is the sherry bottle? How much is left in it? How much do you need, and how much does he need?
Oh man. So how is everybody this month? It's some of you I see every month. Some of you I haven't seen for a couple of months. How is everybody?
Doing well, thank you.
I'm going to jump in and say I have to leave at about quarter after because I have my own hangout.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I know. I didn't check with you. I always should defer to your hangout times, but at least I was a half hour behind yours. But I hadn't been on for a while, so yeah, I wanted to jump on and be a patron before I went and ran my own hangout. So.
Well,
I'm glad you jumped
Christy,
in.
it's always great.
Christy, I keep wanting to be a part of your hangouts, and every time you've had a hangout, I've had something else to do that night or something.
Well, we have to find a way to make that work so that we can both be together in the same hangout then.
I know. I don't know if I have anything to add to all the smarts you've already put it up on your site, though.
Oh, hey, we have great conversations. I don't want to steal Steve's
No, go for it, please. No, please, go ahead.
But we've been getting in the habit of doing facepalm moments of the week during the patron hangout. So I put up stories, and so it doesn't really take any prep. You just have to, hear me read it out and look at the screen grab and then chat about it. So like this week, we're going to be talking about a story and raw story about two professionals, two doctors who recommended that in order to conform to some cultural practices of people out in Africa and other places in the world, that we should in the West tolerate nicking girls' genitals in order to alter them.
Oh, here we go again.
So we're going to have a chat about that.
Yeah,
and we're
too.
going to look at some Pew numbers on religion and politics that had just come out. So we're going to go through the crosstabs. So yeah, it's just off the cuff fun. Thanks for letting me do the plug.
No, of course, I absolutely.
The only thing that
go ahead.
pisses me off even anywhere near as much as MGM, and I don't mean Metro Goldwyn Mayer, is FGM.
Oh, they piss you off too.
Yeah, I mean, supposedly, God created us with these wonderful things. Now we're supposed to cut them off. There's logic in there somewhere, but I'm having a tough time finding it.
There's a very easy answer to any kind of genital mutilation. Consent. A child cannot consent.
Exactly.
There you go. End of conversation.
I thought it was going to be God's a fuck up, but okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that one goes without saying.
If he didn't want people to have those bits, he wouldn't have had to put them on if you think about it from God's point of
It's
view.
like, I got all this extra skin. Where am I going to put it?
As an engineer, maybe I'm thinking that maybe it's a case of the engineering change request never came through until they went into production. They went into production, and gee, now we can't do a darn thing about it. Well, we got to do something. But see, this is where the engineering process just completely goes, 50.
Maybe they were thinking, what I want is a bag that's small at some point, but I want it to be bigger in another. So if you get a bunch of foreskins, it's like the magic shrinking bag. Maybe they were trying to work that.
Is that the bag you can never find shoes to go with?
No, you go barefoot in that case.
What? Yeah, I was going to say, what shoes could you possibly wear with a foreskin bag? I'm not a stylist. I'm not educated in the ways of fashion, but I'm sure it must be difficult.
You can waltz with a boil, don't mean you can cut corners.
I'm really liking this. We're very pun-centered so far today. And I just wanted to sneak in a plug of my own, and this is also a plug for Christy, so you'll be happy to hear this, Christy. Christy and I and Kevin Logan are also doing a hangout next week.
Really?
About Sherlock and Elementary. So we're going to talk about those wonderful television programs, and everybody should watch that too.
Nice.
Yeah, that'll be on my channel. So come over by mine.
Christy's channel. So don't come around here looking for it, because it ain't going to be here.
It's about Sherlock. That might be pretty interesting. I'm actually taking this Victorian detective fiction class.
Oh,
So
that sounds awesome.
Very niche.
I might want to I want to check this out if it's about Sherlock, you know?
Yeah, and I'm currently in the middle of an elementary binge to prepare for this because I had not been a fan. Not that I had anything against it, I just hadn't watched it. I had not been a fan of the series Elementary before Christy suggested this, so I am boning up because I'm a huge fan of the Sherlock series and just a fan of Sherlock Holmes in general. So yeah. It's been fun.
Johnny Miller really sort of brings his own thing to it, and in a way I sort of like it, and in a way I just find him irritating as hell. And I don't know. I don't know what your reaction is to him thus far.
I like it, but it is very different. It's not like a typical It's not what you would imagine if you think, okay, Sherlock Holmes. It's very, very different. It's much more of an adaptation than.
Yeah. Although I'll say this too, I like Watson. I like how her character has evolved, and I like how he has actually worked to empower her. You know, basically mentor her. Yeah. And in that regard, I think it's very interesting because she's actually gone off on her own and demonstrated her own capability, her own competence. And I think that says a considerable portion. Christy, I don't know how you would feel about it as a woman, but I'd be interested in your input.
Yes, and I'm going to be glad to give it on next Sunday. But what I do want to say before I leave, because I've got like 3 minutes left, is in Johnny Lee Miller's defense, and I love him as Sherlock, what I would say is he gives a very subtle performance. So pay attention not only to his acting and sort of the dialogue, but the inflections he uses and how crisply he pronounces things in order to make a point. And also he uses a very awkward, his sort of like an awkward physical body language sometimes as well. So I think if you look at his performance in totality and realize the ways he's trying to be Sherlock, for me I think he's got a real depth to the character that I have not seen for a while. So with that, I have to leave the call. I'm going to close the window so I don't hang up, and that way the call shouldn't end. Okay. So it's been lovely, guys. I'm sorry it wasn't for longer. Maybe next month it'll map on better. I'll make sure I don't double book over Steve.
No, important to leave people with gangs.
All right, break a leg, Christy.
Bye,
See you later. And
Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Bye.
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 Nice of Christy to drop in. I always like to talk to Christy. And yes, we're doing that on her channel next week. So anybody here, anybody watching who's interested to hear us talk about Sherlock Holmes and the two current TV adaptations of Sherlock Holmes, check that out.
All right.
So now the woman's gone, let's start our MRA meeting, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Oh, thank God.
I was actually able to protest those meetings, those canceled pro-rape meetings.
Oh, yeah. How did that go?
We got a lot of support, except there were like at one point there were these, they looked like junior high students riding on BMX bikes, throwing things not very effectively and shouting things not very intelligibly. And then they were stopped by some police a few blocks down, and I understand the police shouted at them until they cried, literally.
That sounds like that sounds like the perfect encapsulation of the MRA movement in general.
I was going to say, Steve, you got the baby bottle handy?
Yeah, I should always have it within arm's reach.
Yeah, it was nice to see it during that one thing you did, revisiting riffing on mail call. I mean, I've been waiting for that to make a comeback.
I figured I should do a little bit of fan service if I was going to do the mail callback. You know?
Yeah, I didn't start watching your stuff until after the mail call era.
Yeah.
Like, I guess I must have missed out. I mean, I started
the mail
watching,
call era.
I started watching. I mean, that's what came to mind. I mean, I started watching some of them because I know you still got them up. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. From what I've heard about them, it sounded like it was a pretty cool thing you had going on.
It was fun to do. The Herald Mail.
Herald Mail Epoch.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it was a fun show to do, but I was glad to end it because I like it of all the videos that I do, that series was probably the most depressing because all of the people were from this immediate area. I mean, it's one thing to talk about like really weird, silly, frustrating things that are like in the news or going on the internet, but when you're talking about people that are like that literally in some cases live in the same town, you're like, oh God, This is a person that probably lives within walking distance from me. You know.
Just
Yeah,
remember,
it's
some of the
kinda
people
depressing.
you probably mentioned, I probably grew up with. So
Yeah,
we're in the same situation.
because yeah, didn't you say you're from Waynesboro originally?
I'm from Waynesboro, so anyone
Yeah.
from Greencastle, Chambersburg, Hagerstown is my area. So
Yeah. Well, we're in it together.
So I used
Well,
to just
it's
put my playlist on and watch it.
The cops are coming to get somebody.
oh dear.
Yeah, I think that's an ambulance.
Oh.
Jack McPherson sets something on fire.
Oh bloody hell, him again. You know, the thing is too, I mean, you want to be proud of your hometown. I mean, I love Cleveland.
Yeah.
I mean, although there are elements of Cleveland that are truly screwed up. I mean, I think how this Tamir Rice thing has just gone on and on and on, and now get this, the Plain Dealer, which is our daily newspaper, just endorsed Tim McGinty for prosecutor, and he's the guy who ran that whole business, ran the Rice investigation, the whole nine thing, and I'm sort of looking at that and going, what? It's, you know, it's a real what the fuck moment.
And I can't believe they're fucking billing his parents for the ambulance. Like, I mean, I know service is rendered, but still, come on, it's just there's adding insult to injury.
I think they dropped that.
That got rescinded, but I mean, that it even remotely happened demonstrates, you know, just staggering insensitivity, and it just blows my mind. You've got to wonder, does the left hand even remotely know what the right hand is doing?
So I mean, I'm glad it was dropped. I didn't know it was dropped. But I mean, that's a good thing.
Yeah, well, but it never should have happened in the first place.
No, it shouldn't have.
Well, and the problem is there are people who just don't take these kinds of things seriously. You know, I mean, the fact that a prosecutor who was involved in that kind of a incident could even be considered as a serious nominee or as a serious possibility is the problem. I mean, it's like, well, we need to look elsewhere. We need to let the people in this community know that we take their concerns seriously and not just continue to elevate people who have participated in what is really the problem.
Right.
You know? Yeah, that's one of the most disheartening things.
I think it's even more disheartening though is that I think this is kind of obvious that you can get the murder of a 12-year-old kid on video, and then you still have people saying, oh well, he shouldn't have been black, whatever, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
They don't directly say that. They just imply it.
Exactly.
It's many different subtle implied euphemisms for that. That's basically all people can say is.
It is shockingly callous how people can just dismiss, what is clearly a murder. I mean, it shouldn't matter what color they are. It shouldn't matter what kind of person they are. It shouldn't matter how old they are.
But
it should be, hey, you just saw someone.
Yeah.
I know, but it's fucking infuriating. It's like you just watch someone die for fuck's sake, and how can you possibly side against them?
Yeah.
They should have talked back.
Right.
And people
talk back.
And yeah, exactly. And people come up with so many excuses for rationalizations for the person who killed him, and have no time for understanding or empathy for the victim.
Right.
Here's something to consider. I don't think it couldn't have been more than 2 days after the incident, and there was some local coverage of this, and there was, I believe he was a police officer, don't quote me on this, but he was talking about just the very simple business of how the police car approached the site. And it said, okay, you've got a situation where you might have somebody with a gun, and as I said a little while back, that the officers didn't know that it might have been a toy gun. And instead of pulling right up next to the guy, which is what they did, he said, okay, approach obliquely, stand off at a distance, and evaluate the situation before engaging. Gee whiz, what a concept.
Yeah.
I do like the way that came out, though.
And then
the way that came out, though, you said, "Officer, don't quote me on this." That's a great name.
They're all called that.
Yeah, you can find them in the white pages.
There's
If
quite a
anybody
few
still
officers
has
that quote me
white
on that.
pages.
It's interesting because I saw this video. It was I can't remember what the occasion was, but it was someone they were showing the Tamir Rice video to a group of people at this presentation, and they were making the point that the officers drove up and shot this kid in a span of less than a second.
Like the door wasn't even open in the fucking car yet.
Actually, the door open, shots fired. I think the total elapsed time was like 2.3 seconds. Somebody again, that's something that sticks in my head.
Whatever time it was ridiculous.
Yeah, no evaluation, no.
Hey kid, what are you holding? What is that? Is that a toy gun? What's going on here?
He's like, hey, just get me close enough so I can tell if he's black or not. He is? Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, pop. Yeah. There we go.
Well, and I know I've said this before I've said it before in these hangouts, and I've said it before in other videos too, that the most incredible thing to me is that these sorts of things continue to happen, even after videotape evidence, even after police brutality and racial disparities in the way police deal with suspects.
Tamir Rice, Eric Garner.
We've been talking about it for 2 years now. And it's a national story every time something like this happens, and there's just outrage. I mean, people are marching in the streets. Black Lives Matter is a thing. People are marching in the streets over this, and police still do this. They still feel empowered to do this, and they think
to lay low for a little bit,
I mean, never mind the systemic racism and the carelessness and the irresponsibility and the sense of entitlement that some police seem to have. I don't want to blame all police for it, but I mean, never mind all of those problems that need to be addressed. What about just fucking public relations? What about somebody in each police department calling a meeting and saying, for God's sake, just be careful, watch yourselves, don't fucking shoot first and ask questions later. You're just stop.
Yeah, I feel like some of these are things that can be settled just with like, guys, come on, let's have a meeting, let's talk about this, calm the fuck down.
Yeah. Every time something like this happens, and it seems like every couple weeks or every couple months at the longest, another incident like this pops up where an unarmed person is shot by a police officer under suspicious circumstances.
Yeah, it just happened again in Chicago. Yeah. This kid was, I think he was like a student somewhere, and he was being other students were trying to break into his like apartment building or whatever, and so we called the cops, but he was uncomfortable giving out his name, so he declined to give the operator his name. So the operator got impatient, hung up on him. He called back 2 more times, got hung up on by the same guy, and then when the officers showed up, he shot the guy who called because he was holding a baseball bat to defend himself, and he died.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. Go ahead.
Well, what's scariest to me about this whole business is that it's very swiftly becoming the new normal, and it can't. I mean, we can't afford it. I mean, not as a civilization, not as allegedly decent human beings. But I don't know how to stop it. America scares the life out of me.
The United States is, I think, right now probably the most dangerous country in the developed world. Like not including third world countries. Like I think
in the first world, no argument, and you can blame the second. They put that all right at the feet of the Second Amendment.
And there are people here who are complacent about that. They think that's acceptable. Like we have a homicide rate 4 times that of the UK or China, if that should say something about us. And there are people here who are comfortable with that. I don't like the idea that exchange students coming here from like London are exposing themselves to more risk just to come visit America. That's just
there was some weeks ago. I remember I was having sort of a conversation in the comments with most of you guys have probably seen Bruce Bartup in comedy, and I mean, he talked about coming to the U.S. I'd love to have him over here. Like I said, I'm very proud of Cleveland. I'd love to show him around. But at the same time, if he's concerned by what the media is, conveying about how the United States is, I'm not sure I've got an argument against it.
Yeah, I mean, the major concern for me is because I think one of the reasons why people are complacent with things as they are is because even though we do have much higher rates of violent crime than other comparable countries, most people are still okay. You know, most people don't ever have to deal with that. Most people are not going to be victims of violent crimes or even have to deal with it in any sort of indirect way. So we think, well, it doesn't affect us, so it's okay. And I mean, it's not all bad. The rate of violent crime in the U.S. is still going down overall.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, Michael Shermer, the Better Angels of Our Nature. I haven't read the book yet, but I'm aware of it, and I probably should read it. But I mean, the thing is, violent crime may be down, but the reporting of it, probably has never been more intense than it is at this moment.
We're more aware of it. That's why it feels it's more scary, I think.
Yeah,
exactly.
And there are things that other comparable countries do in terms of their laws and in terms of their cultures that contribute to them being less violent than we are, that it seems like we just refuse to do.
Yeah.
You know, like gun control, like not sensationalizing or romanticizing violence. Like there are just certain things that other countries do and say, okay, this is just we just have a different culture, we have a different law, we have a different attitude toward violence, toward firearms, etc. And it seems to work for us pretty well, at least relatively speaking.
Yeah.
And in the United States, there's a very, very large and powerful block of people that just go, yeah, we're not going to do that.
You know, Steve, here's something. I look at the polarization in the American politics right now, and I sort of wonder if there's any Western European democracies where it's anything anywhere near that. I mean, we're polarized almost to the point of paralysis right now, and I'm just, you know, I don't know whether we've got anybody in Western Europe who has their finger on the pulse. And, you know, if Christy were here, she probably would know more about it. But, I mean, I'd sort of like to have something to compare us to, you know?
Yeah.
You can bite a sleeping dog, don't mean the day ain't gonna be drunk. No, wait, that didn't come out right.
Is that another Southern expression?
Yes.
Something like that.
I am, though. I am happy. I guess it is kind of a silver lining that violent crime overall has gone down. I mean, from the research I've done, I'm pretty sure the 80s was this country's most violent decade, and things have gotten like a lot better since then. So I guess that in and of itself is a good thing, but I just wish we weren't still having all these other problems, you know?
Yeah, it's not a reason to be complacent. You know, it's a reason to be optimistic and to be like engaged, you know, but it's not a reason to be complacent. And you know, mentioning how the measures taken in, you know, to get tough on crime in the 80s, like a lot of those have inadvertently contributed to other problems, because a lot of those tough on crime mandatory sentencing laws that were passed in the 80s, especially to deal with drug-related crimes, have turned out to be huge contributors to the racial disparities in the justice system.
Well, here's something for you as well, Steve. I mean, I think, you know, it's interesting. I don't think of the 80s as being anywhere near as violent as the 60s were. And the first two things that come into my head as it comes to that, number one is Bloody Sunday.
Yeah.
And number two is the Chicago convention in 1968. And I don't know if you ever saw the footage of, you know, the cops basically going nuts, and basically going nuts under the direction of Dick Daley, who, I mean, he was the last of the machine politicians as far as I'm concerned, and the crowd shouting in unison, the whole world is watching. And the thing is, now the whole world can watch. So maybe that's part of the reason why things have not quite gotten to that level again.
I just want to
write a song about Bloody Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday, Bloody Sunday.
You know, I'm just thinking, Lauren, you mentioned the 60s. Would anyone here agree with me if I said that at least so far this decade, we haven't been this aware of police brutality and this outspoken against it since the 60s?
That's probably a fair statement. I mean, but again, we've got a huge advantage in the internet and in you know, like social media, you know, global communications, the whole nine yards. It's completely unprecedented. And I mean, you know, I hate to fall back on crowdsourced journalism as a means to, gain awareness because of the lack of vetting. But I mean, it beats a poke in the eye with a sharp stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to note for everybody watching, Robert, who is here with us and is apparently having some technical difficulties. He's commented in our chat here that for the entire conflict in Northern Ireland, like the entire history of it, I believe is what he means. The police shot less people than in a single year in the United States.
That is phenomenal.
That's just
Yeah.
unacceptable.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and the thing
I think
is,
the fact that people die is unacceptable, but that's perhaps pie in the sky.
Yeah.
Cake.
Well, there was a study. I think I mentioned it in a video last year. In I forget what country it is, but it was a year. I think it might have been Norway, where they released a report that their police had the fewer people had died in police custody there in the last 15 years than die in a single year in the United States.
I remember that.
There was like a month. I think last July there was a month where like something like five black women died in police custody in the United States in various places. That single, very specific demographic, more people had died than had died in this European country in total for several years. I mean, it was really shocking.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of people try to say, oh no, it's because there's more people in the U.S. And then but no, it's
that's why
the point you brought up in one of your Off Monday rambles was that it's if you compare it like per 100,000 people,
Exactly.
It's an apples to apples comparison, and we are demonstrably higher than we should be.
Oh yeah, it was you who disassembled that. Now I remember.
Yeah. Robert also says that police in England and Wales shot 0 people in 2012 and 2013. So,
Yeah, but you can't tell that to Wayne LaPierre.
No.
Look, Robert, what you don't understand is that if everyone had a gun,
yeah,
then
exactly.
no one would be shot.
Yeah,
More
that
guns,
whole
less
equation
crime.
about, you stop bad people with guns with good people with guns, and the idea of training or awareness or the level of competency that you have to have with a weapon in the first place. I mean, my grandfather taught me how to shoot, and I do pretty well, but I would no more want to go out there with a weapon on my side than bark at the moon. Thank you very much, but no.
I could think of like a dozen reasons why that's just a terrible idea. Not the least of which is, what if someone's a tourist or something, like they can't be carrying a gun because they don't have a license, or what if someone can go from good guy to bad guy like that.
That right there. That is the key insight. You can go from a good guy to a bad guy
in a very, very short time period. Either Wayne LaPierre thinks real life is a fucking comic book, or he doesn't care if everyone else does, just so we can get his money. It's got to be one of the two.
Have you seen the news
LaPierre
report?
the president of the
NRA?
The NRA.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
might
the
as well
thing
be
is,
vice
it's
president.
not even a good guy to a bad guy. It could be just as simple as a good guy to a good guy with poor judgment.
Exactly.
Human to
Exactly.
human.
Have you seen that news story about the Uber driver, right?
Yeah.
No, what happened?
There's an Uber driver somewhere, I don't remember where, somewhere in America, but he just, no record, no criminal record, no history of mental illness, and he just decided he was just going to kill a bunch of people, so he killed 6 people before he was finally arrested.
Was that Minnesota?
I don't know, does anyone remember where that is?
I remember because it just happened like last week.
Well, great. Morgan news. Jesus.
And it's like, no record, somewhere in Michigan. From the looks of it.
Kalamazoo, he just...
Yeah,
There you
yeah.
Really? All right, yeah.
But yeah, no record of history with this guy, and just shoots a bunch of people. It's like, you don't know. Even if they don't have a record, it could be a psychopath who's waiting to explode.
Yeah.
I saw someone posted, I think it was a meme somebody posted somewhere on social media last week about, because now, there's also the story about the FBI wanting Apple to help them unlock phones. Mm-hmm. And someone pointed out that they had a picture of the iPhone on the top half, and they said the FBI said we are now more interested in doing something about this that belonged to the San Bernardino shooters, and then the bottom half is the guns that they used, and then these things that belong to the San Bernardino shooters. Like we're more threatened by their phones than by
their
doing
guns.
something about their guns that they actually used to commit the murders.
Well, I mean, there's a certain degree of truth to that, in that information is enormous power. But the thing is, you can't single task on that. I mean, certainly the information needs attention. The guns also need attention.
Yeah, and just the idea. I mean, one thing that people who are sort of in the pro-gun camp tend to ignore is the amount of accidental gun death that occurs, or the amount of gun suicides that occur. And to be fair, there are people in the anti-gun camp who contribute to this, because we like to focus on on homicide and on mass shootings, because those are the most horrifying to us, and those seem like they're the most urgent issue. But there's also accidental gun death, which usually numbers in the thousands in the U.S. every year, and gun suicides, which is actually higher than gun homicides.
I think it's like 20,000 a year.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's like almost twice as high in a lot of years, and those are problems too. And so that's why when I talk about it, I try to say gun death to include everything, because of course mass shootings trouble me greatly, and I think it's a horrifying statistic that there are more mass shootings in the U.S. than any other place in the world, and there's no excuse for that, and we need to fix that.
Yeah.
But the total number of gun deaths of everything is just horrifying, and you can't, and there's no excuse for the more guns thing as far as that goes, because
and the CDC they can't just conduct studies. They have been,
there's a federal reg against it.
Yeah.
And I think there was a petition out, I want to say change.org or something, where they're saying, hey, can we rescind this, please?
Yeah. If you read that law is actually, I mean, the bias written into that law in plain language is incredible. The law basically says it's illegal for the government to fund research that could be used to promote gun control. That's what the law, you can't, not that it's illegal for the government to promote gun control. It's illegal to fund research that could be used to promote gun control. I
honestly wouldn't be surprised if within the next 10 years they just start falling back on, no, fuck you, don't take our guns, like, publicly. If that's what spokespeople come out and start saying, like, that'd be hilarious. But I mean, I could see it happening.
Yeah. Oh, Robert mentioned something else. Robert mentioned something else in the chat that's important. He says the problem is that they were Muslim, meaning the shooters, and that takes priority over any other consideration. If you count deaths in the U.S. by Muslims, including 9/11, Fort Hood, and San Bernardino, it will still be a tiny percentage of quote-unquote normal Americans shooting each other. That sadly is absolutely correct.
There's one other problem in that, because the second you get into that, you get into the issue of Homeland Security and that involvement, and whatever hookup with ISIS or whoever else you might be there. And the hell of it is, they let that take priority when you still got gangs in Chicago, shooting up the South Side like it's an everyday occurrence, which unfortunately it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's no recognition of the scale.
There are some
There
neighborhoods
is a
in
scene.
Chicago. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, there is a scene in the Grand Hotel Budapest where someone starts shooting at someone else, and then troops start coming out of their rooms, and not knowing what's going on, they start shooting each one at a time. Everybody is shooting. Everybody has a gun, and nothing is getting hit. No one is getting hit. Maybe this is what the NRA sees.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like something either out of an old Western or something out of Bugs Bunny.
Yeah. Yeah. Or only the good guys hit their marks. The bad guys are just terrible shots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a nice world that would be.
Yeah, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, someone mentioned, I think Joe mentioned, he like Wayne LaPierre thinks that it's like a comic book in real life. The most popular superheroes are the ones that don't use guns. So I just would like to bring that up. Batman don't need no gun. In
No.
fact, it's always bothered me that Batman uses guns in the movies at all, even like mounted on his car.
Oh,
You know,
really?
I just don't think that's something that I see Batman doing. I don't like Batman having like machine guns on his car. Like,
I don't know.
why-
I mean, he never uses them to actually kill people. He just doesn't
Yeah,
take
I
them
know.
past the other vehicles. I mean, I don't know. I think it was meant to add to the attempted naturalistic setting, like of the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, in the original Batman, when he springs those guns up to open up Axis Chemical,
Yeah.
I mean, he could have just as easily had a couple of high-powered lasers. Not that that would have worked horribly well, but I mean, the audience doesn't care.
Right.
But the thing is, the gun, a couple of Ma Deuces are a lot more violent. I mean, bah, 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 bah,
Yeah.
the whole 9 yards with that.
He
You know-
actually did kill people in that, though, didn't he?
Well, I think he killed people well, he killed the Joker at the end of Batman.
Mhm.
He flat out
Well-
murdered the Joker.
Oh,
but
yeah.
but he killed some people. He killed some people incidentally. Like, you can just sort of assume that people died in some of the things he did. But in Batman Returns, I mean, there's that scene where he stuffs a bomb into a guy's belt and kicks him down the stairs, and then
Oh,
2
yeah.
seconds later he blows up. So
Oh, and here's a question for you as a Batman fan, Steve.
Yeah.
Not to derail it like I've been doing anything else for the
No,
rest of
please.
the conversation, but
please derail, my friend.
I had this concept in my head, like hearing about my friends talk for like an hour to an hour and a half about the storyline, which is fascinating, but Batman, the fact that he doesn't kill,
Mhm.
the idea in my head was he doesn't do that because he feels that if he crosses that line, then he'll just become one of the monsters that he's fighting.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common interpretation. I mean, the real reason, and I hate to say this because it sounds like I don't think it's a good part of the character, because I do. I think Batman having a no killing policy is essential to doing a good Batman story, but the real reason that he doesn't kill people is because of the comics code, because or not, it predates the comics code, but because they wanted Batman comics to be appealing to children, and they didn't want Batman to be killing people in the comics. That was before the comics code, but so that's the real reason why Batman doesn't kill people. But yeah, I think if you look at the character, his backstory is that his parents were murdered, and he doesn't want to avenge that by doing the same thing, even if it would be to guilty people, or to
Right, and plus in Batman Begins, there's a scene where towards the beginning where they're talking about like they're bringing out the prisoner, and Batman and Bruce is supposed to behead him with the sword.
Oh yeah.
And then he says, "No, I can't do this. This is my compassion is what separates us from them." I think that's kind of the main point about Batman.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just googled how many people has Batman killed. Oh, there's a lot of people.
There's a lot. There's a lot. Yeah.
He's probably going to kill more in this new Batman versus Superman movie.
God.
Yeah, that thing looks like such a clusterfuck.
Oh my God.
It is going to be, because it's Batman, Superman, Doomsday for some reason is going to be in this movie. Wonder Woman, whose introduction in the trailer was just very awkward and out of place. Lex Luthor. Aquaman, I think, is going to be in this movie.
Yeah.
For some goddamn reason, Aquaman is going to be in this
Look,
movie.
they just
They're gonna
I
integrate-
have an idea! We could
They just
use
ruined it.
whales!
They're going to integrate all of this in what, 150-minute film?
Yeah.
Tell me
Yeah.
another one.
And 150 minutes. I mean, when they came out last week and announced that the running time was going to be 2.5 hours, I reacted on Facebook by posting a clip from the Twilight Zone, and when the sky was opened toward the end, when for those of you who don't know, this Twilight Zone episode is there are 3 astronauts. They went into space, they came back, and now they're disappearing one by one. And there's a scene toward the end of the episode where the second astronaut is realizing he's going to disappear any moment, and it sort of overtakes him, and he goes, "I don't want this to happen! I don't want this to happen!" And
Yeah, that was a funny clip.
he runs down the hallway and disappears. That's my reaction.
And then his roommate looks at him like, "Whoa."
Yeah. Batman Superman's going to be 2.5 hours. I don't want this to happen.
No.
You know, and that brings another point. One of the most wonderful things about the Twilight Zone was the economy of the scripts.
Yes.
They had a half an hour for 4 of the 5 seasons, and indeed most of the hour series, you know, were nowhere near as good, with a couple of notable exceptions. But for a half an hour, they just owned the set.
Yeah.
And nobody seems. I mean, it's like somebody needs to drag these guys back to, you know, the Rod Serling school of screenwriting and say, look, guys, come on, you can do this, and you don't have to flood the screen with characters and subplots and lions and tigers and bears. It's not necessary.
They're just sprinting towards the Justice League. That's all it is.
They're trying to copy Marvel's success. This is not a genuine or sincere effort. This is them trying to get their hands on the cash cow that Marvel has created.
I think even Age of Ultron started to fail in that. Like Age of Ultron felt really busy, like too busy to me.
There was a lot going on.
It felt like more like a tease for Phase 3 than like an actual movie.
At least with Age of Ultron, they really only introduced 3 new characters.
3 new characters.
Yeah, being Witch, the high-speed guy, and Vision.
Vision, yeah.
And I know at least it held together from that point of view, on top of the fact that most of the other superheroes have already had their own introductions in exterior films. Here, all of a sudden, you know, we're going to have a convention. It's going to be called the Justice League of America. It's nuts.
And there is that. I mean, there's the whiff of desperation, and there's the feeling that the DC films are just chasing Marvel. Like when last week when they announced that they're going to release an R-rated cut of Batman Superman.
Really?
Probably not in theaters. The theatrical cut, I'm pretty sure, is going to be PG-13. But they're going to.
It has to be.
They're They're not. Yeah. They're not gonna. They're not gonna release an R-rated.
Red Letter Media saw it coming. I was watching. I was watching an episode of Red Letter Media where it was like half in the bag, and they were talking about how now, because of Deadpool, it's gonna set up this trend of hard R superhero movies, and it's just gonna be like Batman doing Batman and Superman in grotesque graphic.
Yeah. Well, that's why. Deadpool. Sorry, No just said in the chat as well. Deadpool for the R-rated Batman v Superman. That's exactly it. It's Deadpool came out, was rated R, was a bigger hit, I think, than a lot of people expected it to be.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, R-rated superhero movie, we can do that."
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like Deadpool makes sense though. Batman and Superman neither make sense.
Yeah.
Tell me it wouldn't make sense to make it X-rated, and then that line, "Tell me, do you bleed?" would make so much more sense.
No.
Oh God. Okay.
I haven't seen Deadpool yet. My one question would be, I'm going to take a guess and say Deadpool has its tongue sufficiently planted in its cheek so that it's not coming on ridiculously heavy. Am I right or wrong on this?
That's what I've heard.
I'll be honest. There are points where it gets too serious, which, you know, I think Deadpool, the whole thing should just be absolute nonsense beginning and end, and there are huge sections where that's true. But then there's like a 40-minute chunk in the middle where it's like, here's the backstory. So
I haven't seen it yet.
More serious.
I tell you the lesson from Deadpool that I wish Hollywood would take, that it's clearly not going to take, and it's what we were just talking about a minute ago, is the length, the running time of Deadpool. Is I think it's under 2 hours.
It's an hour and 50 minutes.
Yeah, so I mean please take look at this movie. Look at this movie that is a big hit that people seem to really like, and oh wow, you can tell a superhero movie that'll be a big hit at the box office in less than 2 hours.
Yeah.
Come on, like there's no reason that I love The Dark Knight. I like The Dark Knight Rises. I still sort of defend that movie, but I mean, there's really no reason why a Batman movie needs to be 2.5 hours long. I just
no.
I don't get that.
I think narratively, for what Nolan was trying to do, I think it was justified in that case. But I mean, no, there's for Batman versus these new movies should not be this long.
I mean, because especially with the new ones, because at least with Nolan's Batman movies, the length was due to plot. Like there was just so much happening.
Mm-hmm.
But with with Man of Steel and presumably with Batman v Superman, the length is going to be because there's just so much action. There's just so much CGI
Yeah.
people getting each other into other things, and that just gets tedious. That's why I don't like the Transformers movies, because it's just like, oh my
fuck those
god, like this is it's a 2.5 hour movie, and an hour and a half of it is just
I
this
still
mindless action.
I still cannot sit through. Okay, I've seen Transformers 1, 2, and 4, and those are bad enough. But I've tried to watch Dark of the Moon, and it's so unwatchably bad. It is such a terrible, terrible, awful movie that I cannot make it past the halfway point. I just can't do it. It's not even so bad it's good. It's just bad.
You've tried and you just can't do it.
I've tried.
Yeah. I haven't even made it through that many. I watched the first one and I was like, I'm out. I'm out.
Yeah, goodbye. Yeah.
And that's where I'm at with the DC movies too. I've decided if Batman v Superman is as bad as it looks, then I'm gonna put my time in for that, and then I'm out. It's like, no,
Yeah,
I'm not.
and I know I've brought this up before, but I think it deserves notice because the last really good film I saw of any sort is still Spotlight.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just monstrous good.
Yeah.
And it's a procedural. There's no violence. It's just people talking to people, and you know digging into this stuff. It's very much a procedural, and I thought it was fascinating as fuck.
It was a great movie. That was a very good movie.
I thought Rorschach was the best part of Watchmen, and that wasn't. Yeah. Well, I guess there was plenty of violence in his part.
Oh,
but,
yeah. Well, Rorschach is just a seething knot there. I mean, he's.
I just mean like the narrative though.
Yeah.
It was really good.
You know, I actually read this article. It was on Cracked actually. I love Cracked.
Yeah, I like Cracked too.
7 reasons why Batman is objectively better than Superman, and the number one reason is that he would lose the fight. Because to Superman it's like he's like whacking a fly, but to Batman it's like he's reaching out and touching the face of a god by punching it.
Yeah.
Like, he would lose the fight. That's why he's a better hero. Like I kind of agree with that. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Batman's only superpower is his titanic wealth.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Are you saying he's the Trump of superheroes?
No, but you know what? I forget who I was talking to a friend about this a couple weeks ago, about how important it is, like if you're doing Batman, especially if you're doing like a Batman story in today's environment, to make sure that you write Bruce Wayne as like a philanthropist, as someone who, cares about Gotham City and is doing things to help the less fortunate in the city. Because if Batman is just a rich guy who uses his money to buy weapons and cars and armor and goes out and beats up criminals, most of whom are probably poor people, that's a real problem. That's a real bad portrayal of Batman. Then you do get like, Bat Trump. It's like, oh, he's rich and he puts on a suit of armor and he goes out at night and he beats up poor people.
I'm pretty sure Donald Trump does do that.
Donald Trump does that.
His legal department has to be considered part of his superpower too, though, because the non-disclosure agreements of his contractors have to be like airtight.
Yes. All those people who built the Batcave and they can't say a word.
I just imagine Trump like American Psycho going out to murder hobos.
Steve, I've got a question for you as it comes to the whole Batman thing. Back in the days when I was keeping an eye on the comics, the subtitle of Batman was World's Greatest Detective.
Mm-hmm.
What has happened to that? I mean, do we really see that with any of the movies? I don't really think so. And yet that was he was supposed to be this deductive genius.
Yeah, that's why I have yearned for many years for a live action Batman TV series, because I think that I would like to see that be more of like a detective-based show, because Batman in the movies has never really been a detective. There are little snatches of it here and there in the Nolan films. Like there's a little bit in The Dark Knight where he's like tracing the bullet and he's looking up people's names and doing detective work to try and find the Joker. But other than that, I mean, there's really not much detective work going on. In the comics, I haven't read the comics, I haven't read the regular monthly comics for years, but when I used to read them, there was like a division of content in the Batman titles where like the Batman book would be more of like the superhero book where he would be going and fighting supervillains, and then Detective Comics would be more of the detective based stories. I don't know if that's still the case or not. But yeah, Detective Batman was always my favorite too, because it's just so weird. It's like he dresses up in a bat suit, and he has like this crazy. He has this super car, and he swings around on batarangs, and he fights these grotesque supervillains. Oh, and he's the world's greatest detective. Like it just sort of seems so out of nowhere.
Yeah, trying to make it like a serious detective story, like a Sherlock or something, but then he's in a bat suit.
Yeah.
Kind of throws
But
it off.
it adds that level of weirdness that if you do it right can really make it work. But yeah, the movies haven't really, Well, and part of it is like it's difficult enough to justify Sherlock Holmes, and he's just a regular guy. And you think like, well, why are the police letting this guy stomp all over the crime scene and look at their evidence? And and then if you take Sherlock Holmes and you say, oh, and he's dressed in a bat suit and nobody knows who he is. And they really should be arresting him instead of letting him in on their crime scene. Then it becomes even more crazy.
Would you say the detective aspect comes through in the animated series at all?
A little bit more, yeah.
Apart from Ra's al Ghul calling him detective.
Yeah. Like, well, I don't really do much detecting. Yeah, I think more so. I think there are more episodes of the animated series that have him doing detective stuff. That's why I think that's why I say I would love. I mean, in this era of prestige cable series, or like a Netflix show, man, if DC Comics licensed somebody to do like a 13-episode Batman series for Netflix or for HBO or something, that could be awesome.
Yeah, that would be great. Have like a bunch of episodes with him and the Joker, like that would just be great.
Yeah,
I vote for
anyone
HBO.
like
yeah, yeah, me too.
Oh. Did anybody like the Netflix Daredevil?
I thought it was awesome. I thought it was one. Yeah.
I was great. Although I think Steve, I mentioned this on a you had asked comment though.
Yeah.
I don't think. Anyway, I saw the trailer for the second season, and it really looks very similar to The Dark Knight. It looks like they lifted the same storyline and then gave the Joker's role to the Punisher, who's going to be in Netflix Daredevil season 2. So I don't know. I'm hoping it doesn't get like unoriginal.
Yeah, that didn't occur to me, but yeah, you're right. There are some similarities, like the Punisher saying, you're just like me, or you're one bad day from being just like me.
Yeah.
But
One really bad day.
How many different movies have used that same line? Like Indiana Jones and Belloc. Would just take a little nudge to push you out of the light. It's almost a trope.
Yeah, it's a really common trope, especially in stories where there's a hero and then there's an arch nemesis. You could even, if you want to bring it back to Sherlock Holmes, you could say that about Holmes and Moriarty. There's just a tiny little sliver of difference between them, and it's a really common theme. Like the hero could become the villain with just a slight change of circumstance. But yeah, I really loved the first season of Daredevil. I thought it was one of the best superhero things I've ever seen. And again,
it was great.
It was because it was more of a crime story. It was a superhero story, but it was told more like a crime story.
Yeah, and it was very gritty too. It was very they made a very lived-in world, out of Hell's Kitchen. I thought it was very very well filmed. And has anyone here seen Jessica Jones?
Yeah. I love that too.
It's like noir. They borrowed so many elements of noir and put it in there, and it's like a film major's like orgasm. It was great. I'm not to say that I watching the.
We know what you meant.
Are you sure?
I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, I agree. I thought Jessica Jones was awesome. Speaking of Daredevil and Batman, I thought Daredevil was the best Batman story that I had seen for quite a while.
And I thought the character development for the Kingpin was delicious. And that scene where he is being he's finally being I forget exactly the circumstances, but he's finally being brought to justice. Before he was like about to be rescued by his thugs and shit. Yeah. But he was making that speech, that very subdued but very intense speech about I'm not the good, I'm the bad.
The ill intent.
Yeah.
I'm the ill intent. Yeah, that was the line.
Yeah, and D'Onofrio was just phenomenal in that role.
Yeah.
And what made it so good was that the show gave him his own space. Like, he wasn't just there to be the antagonist to Daredevil. The show was just as much about him as it was about Matt Murdock and his friends. So that was,
Yeah.
he had like his own. That's something that's really, anybody who wants to know about like writing villains, if you want to write a villain in a story and really make that person come across as a real character, give that villain his or her own space in the story. Don't just have the villain be there to react to the hero.
Plus, they even gave him his own like visual motif with the white snowball and the White Rabbit in the Blizzard was the painting, I think, that he eyes. They turned that into a visual motif throughout the whole series. I thought that was excellent.
Yeah, it was that whole Daredevil show was phenomenal, and I am really looking forward to the second series. A lot of good stuff coming out on Netflix this year. They've got the new Daredevil series, House of Cards is coming back. Later this year, I think, is the Luke Cage show too. I think later, like maybe like in October or November, but it's coming up, and that should be good too, because Luke Cage in Jessica Jones was awesome. He was one of my favorite parts of that series. I loved Luke Cage.
I suppose I had to double check on Hemlock Grove too.
And I'm going to have to dig into Daredevil. I mean, the idea of, I presume it was Vincent D'Onofrio. I like him. I mean, he's been terrific ever since he was a disguised bug in the original Men in Black.
Yeah, he was good in that. Yeah.
Or in Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
I watched that recently. And my love for Stanley Kubrick, because that movie is just it takes like at what that point was kind of an unoriginal theme, but he does it in such an original way.
The thing is, he goes warped. But somehow he's coherent as he goes warped, and that just struck me as being extraordinary.
Yeah, he's a fantastic actor. He's a really fantastic actor. Well, we are past the 1 hour point, so I'm going to call this meeting to a close, my friend. But as always, this was a huge amount of fun for me. It's always great to hang out with you guys, and it's always great for you guys watching to watch us. And as I say this almost every month, it's one of my favorite things that I do every month. Sorry about a couple of you have had some technical issues. I'm sorry that you haven't been able to throw in as often or as contribute as much as you would have otherwise. Hopefully next month we'll have smoother technical issues. As always, if you think this looks like fun and you want to get in on the fun, you can become a supporter of mine on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron of this channel and help me to make the videos that I make and do the work that I do. I appreciate all of you who have done that already, including everyone in the room with me here. Thank you guys for making what I do possible and allowing me to make it better and better and better, and for all the support. And I will see you guys to do this again next month. Thanks for watching, and thanks everybody for joining me.
Thank you.